Welcome back to another Evolve podcast. We're joined by another guest with us today, Alexa Fernando. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. Yeah. Where are you right now?
I'm in Cabo in Baja California Sur, Mexico.
Oh, how is it? It must be so nice there and warm.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah, it's a lot. I don't know, because I was coming from Canada. It's just I kind of needed to work remotely somewhere else. So
yeah, I mean,
this works.
Great choice on the destination.
Have you been?
No, the farthest, I guess, west I've been is Hawaii, which I can't complain because that's beautiful. No, I would love to go there. I want to travel more, but COVID. But in the future, definitely hoping to. I'll add it to the list, the never-ending list.
Let me know when you do.
Okay, I will. Awesome. So just tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of who you are and what you do and where you're at right now.
Yeah, so I'm Alexa and I do photography, content creation, but I also work full-time for a company as a community manager. It's a mix of like social media as well as like creative strategy and just like marketing in general.
Awesome. Wow, that's like my dream future right there.
Yeah, I think it's like once you're really just like a creative, it's just like it all kind of works out and like you have to kind of do all of these different things to build something. I don't know.
What was your routine like before COVID and how has that changed into now?
I would say that I was a lot more on the road. I kind of have to a little bit more wary of the places that I go to in terms of that, as well as like, because in my job, I would normally be meeting a lot of people, but now it's like, okay, we can just, it's all kind of everyone's on Zoom and like, which is great. But sometimes I also just miss that, like the spontaneity of like networking outside and like building that in-person kind of relationship with people. I think that's really what's the thing that has changed. And like, even just like hosting events, a lot of that has changed.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself as a photographer. What's your style? What's your favorite creative expression?
I was that girl that loved carrying my camera, as a little girl and then just snapping away. Like I didn't really know what I was doing but it was mostly because I grew up in different cities a lot. So my family moved. So it's just my way of like documenting and sharing it with my friends and family. And I never knew that this was like this thing that, you could, get paid to do it. And when people were like, it's a profession. So I kind of like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, maybe I'll try it out. And then I started out just shooting a lot of events. And then I kind of got into sports for a bit. So I actually did a shot for like Team Canada during, what was this? Like Pan American Games, like in 2015, which was like an amazing experience to kind of be there with like the athletes. And I think that definitely shaped my style into how I shoot today with like other industries. So, and then I kind of made my mark as like a food photographer in Toronto. And, I like work with one of the biggest like hospitality groups there, probably 10 different restaurants and bars. And I was just like their go-to photographer and capturing all of the content that they have. And that's like, I love food because I actually went to culinary school.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
That's it's a mix of like different things that I love, that like from photography and from food, and then combining that and telling those people's stories in the kitchen, for example, and capturing that. What
made you switch from culinary school and coming out of kind of that career path to what you do now?
Everybody was telling me like, Alexa, like I'm sharing all of these stuff on Instagram, and they're like, you should be a cook. You should have your own restaurant. You should have your cookbook. So I have this thing. So actually a lot of my story and life in general is like when people say, you should do this, I'm like, yeah, I can. And I'm going to do it. So, and I decided to sign up for culinary school. And then once I got into culinary school, it's basically how you imagine it to be, with like kind of like you probably have an idea like it's like a master chef, or it's like they give you a basket of things, and then you're like, this, make a recipe out of it. It's kind of like that. So it's exciting and I loved it, but there was also this part that I discovered that it's like, actually, I don't just love cooking. I actually love the stories of people in the kitchen, and you kind of learn that a dish is not just what's on the plate, but like what happens before it, from like, you know, where did you get your produce, or like what are the ingredients and where did that come from, and like or even just the story of the person, you know, prepping the food, or like, you know, somebody cooking it, or just doing the, like there's all like this kind of like thing that in behind the scenes and in the kitchen that kind of like, I love this is what I want to do, and I feel like there's so much in here that like people need to see and know about. So I was shooting for an event for school, and one of my classmates was in the kitchen, and she looked at me and she was like, I'm not really photogenic, or I'm just cutting onions and it's not that exciting. And I told her, no, I see something else here, and like you look amazing, you just have to trust me, and then it's gonna come out, like you're gonna love this. And I snapped a photo and I kind of gave her a preview, and then she was like, she had this look, and then she was just like, wow, like I really like this. I think that was like one of the first moments that I really like, this is what I want to do. I want to show this side of things, and also like make people appreciate for the things that they do, even just like on the day to day, and give them actually like a different perspective into that. So, and over time, it's like, you know, working with different restaurants and chefs and bartenders even, it's just like I always tell them like, yeah, I know maybe you're just doing this, but it looks a lot more cooler than you think. So
yeah, that's so cool to hear. And I think that, you know, people who kind of have that, you know, that creative vision and that eye to see something for what it is and not necessarily how that other person perceives it. You know, like you were just saying, like the person who you were photographing was like, this isn't that cool, like it's not that big of a deal, but you have that vision to see what that kind of moment holds. And I think that that's very unique to have. What's been the most meaningful project for you to work on, and why?
I would say, so I do a lot of like, you know, Instagram, like marketing as well, and like content creation. And I actually do a lot of like meetups. Somebody approached me from a master's program, and basically she was like, hey, Instagram approached me to host a worldwide Instameet. And she knew that was kind of my thing. Like I would host like all of these like Instagram meetups in Toronto. So for her to like come to me and be like, hey, can you do it for us, was like something that I felt like really validated in the things that I do. But it's also because, so my friend's company, it's called Access Now. And it's basically this app that, you know, rates places based on their accessibility.
Cool.
That's what
neat.
So her community is actually people with, you know, disabilities, and like probably even like elderly. And so it's an entirely different community from what I'm used to, which is like, you know, the creative, the photographers, like the young ones, the millennials here on Instagram. So for her to like come to me, and then it's like, we're going to host a meetup together, and we're going to bring both our communities together.
Oh, wow.
And that was the thing. It's like, and she was like, are you sure we can do this? And I was just so excited. Like, I don't care. Like, no, we're going to make it. And this all happened in like a week, by the way.
Wow.
And this was arranged when, and like, I was in a different city, and I was in Calgary, and she was in Toronto. And then we were like, we'll make this happen. And then I don't know if you've ever had that kind of like, you know, we're just so excited about something. You're just like, yes, like it doesn't matter what it is or how it's going to go. I don't even know if it's going to happen, but we'll make it work. So I just like went full on, and then it happened. We got some partners and all of these things. And then the thing about like meetups is that you actually don't know who's going to come. You're just like putting out this like,
there's more unknown.
Call, like, hey guys. And I was like, wait, what if like nobody comes? Or like, what if it's just my community? Or what if it's just your community? And it's like, you know, but you know, at the end of it, we had over 100 people come into this one space, and from her community and mine. And it was so meaningful in that, because we got to bring, you know, different kind of people that you wouldn't think would hang out. And they're also like engaging and learning from each other. And you see that actually we have so much more in common, and we can build something from that. Sometimes it's just like one person connecting it with another person, and that's all really it is. So
wow, that's so great. Yeah, that's so rewarding. And, you know, bringing kind of two communities together that, you know, maybe for the first time, especially it is unnerving, because, you know, like you said, you're like, I don't know how many people are going to show up. It could be like 5 and it could be 200. Like there's kind of that unknown. But I think, it's so rewarding when stuff like that really works out and it pays off and it's rewarding for everyone. What skills do you believe are really essential to your line of work?
Definitely, you have to be good with people
Mm-hmm.
and interpersonal skills. I think as a photographer, you have to be able to read people and understand them, and like, because you're capturing somebody's essence, basically.
Yeah.
You have to bring that out of them. Yeah, they have to be comfortable with you, and you have, they have to trust you, but sometimes you actually have to be open yourself first and be vulnerable, and then so they can see that actually I do feel comfortable with this person, so I'm going to turn my true self into that. And so I think that is the thing that sometimes is like missing, but it's actually so important.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not just like snapping a photo. It's not just like, okay, because in the end it's like it's also, as you said earlier, it's like about that having this vision and this eye, and then like trying to tell that story of that person.
Yeah.
And that comes from empathy and relating, really.
Yeah, that reciprocity is so important. I've had a relationship like that, and a friend of mine is a photographer, and it's so much easier for her to be behind the camera and for me to be in front of the camera when there's that kind of understanding and that comfortability. And that is so evident in the photographs that come out later. That's so important to have that understanding and that foundation.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, do you know Platon, like one of the famous like portrait photographers?
I don't think so.
There's this episode on him on Netflix and like Abstract. It's like it's one of my favorite episodes ever, and I rewatch it several times. But he does like, amazing portraits of like world-renowned people.
Wow.
And it's just he tells like the story of how you capture somebody's essence.
Wow.
So I would recommend that.
I'll add it to my Netflix watch later list 100%. Switching focus a little bit, what has been your most challenging project, and how did you approach it, and what did you learn from it?
This year I had a project with Sunkist, and I had signed up a contract to do, I think it was like 4 months with them, like do kind of a post every month and all of that. But because of COVID happening, we kind of had to change all of like our messaging and what we're going to put out, because you want to be aware and not too like insensitive, right?
Yeah.
One of the asks was to be on this Instagram live and to do kind of a cooking show. And it's entitled like When Life Gives You Lemons, which is quite fitting.
Love that.
And then again, I was like, yeah, let's do this. Like I've always wanted to be on an Instagram live. When you're working with a brand, it's like all the logistics of doing an Instagram live is a little bit different, and they have a lot of expectations or requirements. So, and I didn't kind of expect that, or when I signed up for it, but we'd have to do like so it's kind of like a TV segment. That's how it kind of ended up becoming. And then you'd have to like, you would know how it's like, okay, we have to do a briefing, we have to do a dry run number 1, dry run number 2. And I was like, hey, this is like taking a lot more time than I thought it would be. And then they would like bring on like everybody. So I think that challenge is doing all of this online and dealing with like a team that's all virtually. Like, you'd have somebody directing, and then somebody actually would check my mic too. And then it's like, how do I do this? And I think that's where it's just kind of like you need to kind of be aware of, number one, like, what you sign up for, but also like don't be afraid to ask questions, or just like, actually, this is not working out. Can we do this differently? It's a lot more harder to be open about it virtually, because I feel like you kind of like expect things to work out all the time. But
for sure.
Like, I think for me, that was like the challenge there. But in the end, it was really good. I think you can find it online. Sometimes I sign up for these things, and like, when I'm in the moment, it's like, wait, did I actually do this right?
You're like, what did I sign up for? Literally.
Yeah. And then, but you know what? The dry runs actually really help. Like, even for a moment, like I was like, this is way too much stuff, but you see like the value in that. So I think, I learned things are sometimes complicated because they're there for you to grow from.
Absolutely. And like, we've talked a lot on this podcast with other guests as well. Like, just get started and go. Like, create something. It doesn't matter like what it is. Like, get your foot in the water and then keep going from there. And the importance of, talking to other people, working with other people, and not working alone.
It was like quite appropriate, like with the name of the thing, the title was When Life Gives You Lemons. So
yeah, that's so fitting. That's all of 2020 right there for you. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Great. So on that same page, what advice or techniques would you give someone who is kind of interested in what you do in the field that you're in?
My advice is that I only usually have like just one, two thing. It's just to stay curious,
Love that.
and to don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. We have this in society to like, you have to be this one thing, like you're to identify. There's something about labeling ourselves, which is great. I think that's amazing to like own yourself and like, this is who I am. But I think there's also a point that you're going to be like, actually, do I still want to do that? And I think you shouldn't be afraid to leave all the stuff, like even if you've built something out for yourself, because that's what happened to me. Like I was this photographer, like for this industry for a long time, and when I was burned out, I looked at myself, well, I can only do photography, like that's it. Like what do I do? Like I don't know who I am anymore when you tied yourself to do this. But you have to realize that it's okay. Like you can also like outgrow things and all of that stuff. So it's okay to start over and to reinvent yourself.
I love that. I've had moments in my life where I feel like I'm on a certain path, and I'm someone who very much is fearful of change. So, someone giving me the advice to like, don't be afraid to reinvent yourself is very intimidating. But looking back, I'm like, oh, like that is exactly what I needed to do in that moment for me to be here now. That is great advice, especially for someone like myself who's like, oh, loves to be in control, but of course, like needs that push sometimes to get where I want to go. In case people want to follow up with you, where can people best find you?
Instagram is always my channel. Yeah, it's at AJ Fernando. That works.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me, having this conversation. This was great. And, hopefully if I'm in Cabo anytime soon, I will hit you up.
Sounds great. We can go scuba diving.
Oh, yes, please. I'm all into water sports and anything about that. So
amazing.
Thank you so much, Alexa, for joining us. This was really great. Check out, exclusive to our Instagram, Exposed, where creatives share their most embarrassing moments. You will not regret it. Anyway, thanks. See you back here next week.